Hello and welcome to Prudent Media. My name is Sachin Chatte and on this program we take a look at the latest releases. Well, there are 3 movies this week. We'll start off with the new Indiana Jones film first. Steven Spielberg set out with the Indiana Jones films and he thought that the character was like James Bond but without the hardware. Raiders of the Lost Ark was born in 1981 and it became a huge success. 2 more films followed, Temple of the Doom in 1984, which was the weakest of the trilogy, and then we had The Last Crusade in 1989, which was again a big success. Almost 20 years later, Spielberg rebooted the franchise with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 2008, but that movie was a total dud. It is a big risk that everyone took with Dial of Destiny. The failure of the previous film aside, this is also the only film which is not directed by Spielberg, nor it is written by the creator George Lucas. James Mangold, who gave us Ford vs Ferrari and a couple of Wolverine movies, takes over as director, while good old Harrison Ford shows up in the iconic role of Indiana Jones and he bows out in style. This is a well-deserved farewell for the actor who has played the role for 40 years now. He was half his age when he started out in the first film. Dial of Destiny gives more than enough bang for your buck. It has the charm, the tone and the feel of the original Indiana Jones films. That is quite admirable because it is not an easy job to have those factors from the past in today's time. The screenplay also throws in the right amount of nostalgia by bringing in a couple of beloved characters from the past. Now the Nazis are back. They are the villains just as they were in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The timeline is different though. This film opens in 1944, around the time Hitler was about to lose the war. A very young looking Indy, played by Harrison Ford of course, along with his buddy played by Toby Jones, tries to retrieve the Lance of Longinus, the blade associated with Jesus. Instead, in an impressive action sequence aboard a train where the Nazis have stolen antiquities, they come across Antikythera, a device designed by Archimedes which can mess around with time. This sequence is action-packed, but Nazis running away with the loot of artifacts reminded me of the brilliant Burt Lancaster film The Train, which was released back in 1964. Now fast forward 25 years later, man has just landed on the moon. Indy is retiring from his teaching job and Jürgen Waller, played by Danish actor Mads Mikkelsen, who also played the Bond villain in Casino Royale. In this movie, he plays a physicist Nazi who was on that train but now has moved to America as a scientist who has helped the Americans land man on the moon. But his heart still beats for the Nazis. "You didn't win the war," he tells Jones later. "Hitler lost it." Jones also gets an opportunity to give it back to him. "You are a German, Waller. Don't try to be funny." Now the dialogues in the movie are sparkling throughout the film. The talented Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who wrote Fleabag and the last James Bond movie No Time to Die, shows up as a con woman who also happens to be Indy's godchild. She wants the Antikythera badly to pay off some debts, while Waller will not stop at anything to lay his hands on it. And that can only mean more action. Because of what we have seen him do before, it looks totally believable that Indy can ride a horse in the middle of a parade in New York and become a part of a chase where the horse, with Indy on it, runs on a metro railway track. One of Waller's henchmen, Hawk, played by Dutch bodybuilder Olivier Richters, reminded me of Jaws, played by Richard Kiel in a couple of James Bond movies. John Rhys Davies returns as the Egyptian character Salah, while Karen Allen has a cameo as Marianne Ravenwood, Indy's wife. Antonio Banderas also has a small role to play as a Spanish friend, and probably any actor could have played that bit. At 2 hours and 30 plus minutes, the film is a bit stretched, but it never gets bogged down. From a horse to a tuk-tuk, Jones gets to ride them all, doesn't matter how old he is. The climax goes for the jugular, and kudos to the filmmakers for pulling it off. They tried it in Crystal Skull but failed, but this time it works. While most studio films, particularly the superhero ones, seem to be reverse engineered right from the story to the scenes, Dial of Destiny works because it progresses naturally. We had only 5 films in the last 40 years compared to 10 films in 20 years from the Fast and Furious franchise. Right from the action to the characterization and the way Ford plays it, Indiana Jones will leave a smile on your face. I'm going to go with 4 out of 5 stars for the new Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny. And now let's take a look at a movie called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Adapted from Judy Blume's 1970 young adult novel of the same name, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is a long pending adaptation which Hollywood wanted to make, but the author was not too keen to give the rights. Directed by Kelly Fremon Craig, who made another coming-of-age drama called The Edge of 17 in 2016, the filmmaker clearly has a knack to tell these kind of stories. I haven't read the book, but going by what one saw on the screen, the story of a young 11-year-old on the brink of puberty who talks to God when in doubt seems to be well adapted for a film. The actors, particularly the younger ones, add so much more conviction to the story. It opens with Margaret, played wonderfully by Abby Ryder Foston, discovering that her family has to move from New Jersey to New York, and she is not particularly thrilled about it. Along with her friends, she also has to leave her grandmother, played by Kathy Bates, behind in New York. In New Jersey though, she makes new friends and most of their conversations revolve around boys and bust sizes. Margaret's parents, Barbara, played by Rachel McAdams, and Herb, played by Benny Safdie, have raised her without any religion. The mother is a Christian and the father is Jewish, and Margaret is neither. So she ends up talking to God, assuming there is only one. And she says, "I've heard great things about you," while saying her first prayer. While she is dealing with puberty issues, her friends led by Nancy, played by Ellie Graham, are obsessed with bras and bust sizes. I didn't find anything particularly funny about 11 and 12-year-olds discussing about bust sizes at length, and they keep screaming, we must increase our bust while pushing their chest out. Okay, it was amusing the first time, but only mildly, and that too because the director cuts to different shots with their expressions. Perhaps some might find that sequence funnier than I did. In fact, given that it is such a personal tale of a young girl growing up, there was not a lot that I could relate to. But given that the director Kelly Fremon Craig could still make you understand what the protagonist was going through, and to extract such remarkable performances is a triumph of her directorial skills. I'm going to go with 3 out of 5 stars for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And now let's take a look at the Hindi release of the week, Satyaprem Ki Katha. Now in cinema, just having your heart in the right place is not good enough. There has to be a certain skill and method in the storytelling. Satyaprem Ki Katha just pays lip service to an important issue of sexual violence against women. When the budget of each song, and all of them needless songs, is probably more than the budget of an independent film that delves into serious issues in a sensitive manner, you know that something is not right. Incidentally, the previous night before watching this film, I saw Finnish auteur Aki Kaurismäki's The Man Without a Past. Like all Aki Kaurismäki films, it was a low-budget comedy that dealt with so many serious issues without preaching even for 1 second. And the next morning, I saw this Satyaprem Ki Katha, which has the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Directed by Sameer Vidwans, who makes his foray from Marathi to Hindi films, Satyaprem Ki Katha is the kind of film where the heroine uses a blade to slash her nerves. We see a close-up of the blade and the wrist dripping with blood. What is worse, the father threatens that if she doesn't marry the man of his choice, he will also slash his wrist. He also reminds her about carrying a blade in his pocket at one point. But let's rewind and start with one of the many expensive songs. Satyaprem, also known as Sattu, played by Karthik Aryan, does a dance with 100 extras during the opening credit. I'm not quite sure why it took so long to establish that he's unemployed, he's a college dropout, he does chores at home, and about a year ago, he fell in love with a singer named Katha, played by Kiara Advani. Now, she already has a boyfriend. After the dance number, there is no sign of her wanting to become a singer. In the first hour or so, people talk non-stop while your eardrums beg for mercy. The ever-reliable Gajraj Rao and Supriya Pathak play the parents. Now, they are keen to get their younger daughter married, while Sattu is desperate to get married. He gets a lucky break when he breaks into Katha's house, which from the looks of it consumes more electricity than Rashtrapati Bhavan. He finds her with a blade and all that. Next thing you know that her father is more than happy to get her married to this bloke. The second hour of the film delves on their marital strife, but you couldn't care less about any of it. He tries to woo her because she won't consummate the marriage. Meri biwi ek din meri dost banegi, he says, more out of desperation, although he makes it look like it's love. Some of the portions look more like a television soap opera. Towards the end, the issue of sexual violence comes up and the end credits even give some statistics. But you can't have a song and there are 5 music composers on every occasion and in different locations, just like any Bollywood film, and then throw up numbers about violence towards women just to make it look all very serious. Mediocrity under the guise of dealing with a sensitive subject is not a good excuse for a shoddy film like this. I'm going to go with 1.5 out of 5 stars for Satyaprem Ki Katha. Well, that's what I thought of the 3 films that were released this week. Do let us know what you think. And I'll be back next week with you with more movie reviews. Till then, it's goodbye from me.